The marble floors of the Harrow Conservatory gleamed under the afternoon sun, reflecting the intricate patterns of the skylight overhead. Among the polished elegance, a quiet figure moved unnoticed, just as she always had. Her name was Maya Reynolds, and at 28, she had spent the past 3 years working the graveyard shift and early mornings as part of the custodial crew, her beige uniform and name tag marking her role more than any spoken word ever could. Maya moved with a rhythm of her own, not hurried, not hesitant, just consistent, like a metronome set to the tempo of a life that had learned how to endure silence. Her sneakers squeaked faintly as she crossed the hall, a sound barely heard over the distant strains of Chopin leaking from a nearby practice room. Her hands, worn from years of bleach and steel wool, still carried a grace in their movement that seemed misplaced for someone scrubbing brass rails. In the grand reception hall, a grand piano stood like a monarch presiding over a chamber, a Steinway, black and proud, keys untouched for the day's events. Maya's eyes rested on it for only a moment, a flicker of memory crossing her face, barely perceptible. She adjusted the chairs meticulously, 1 inch apart, exactly as instructed. "Maya, make sure the reception area is perfect," barked Mr. Coleman, her supervisor, without looking up from his clipboard. "The board arrives in 2 hours. We don't need any surprises." "Yes, sir," she answered softly. She barely finished when footsteps echoed sharply against the marble. Director Evelyn Hawthorne, poised and commanding at 53, entered the hall like she owned every breath of air within it. Her navy suit was tailored to perfection, and her silver bob gleamed under the skylights. Behind her followed Madeline Bryce, the conservatory's most renowned piano instructor, known equally for her students' accolades and her disdain for anyone without a resume that screamed prestige. "These chairs are uneven," Evelyn snapped, barely glancing at Maya. "And the Steinway, have it polished again. The Jefferson Foundation must see perfection." "Yes, ma'am," Maya replied. Madeline smirked slightly. "And remind your staff to stay out of the main corridors during the event. We don't want them mingling with our donors." Maya kept her eyes on the floor. She was used to this. Being invisible wasn't new. But as she turned to polish the handrail on the staircase, the soft, stumbling notes of a piano passage reached her ears. A young student in the adjoining room was wrestling through a Liszt arpeggio, her frustration evident with each misplayed note. Instinctively, Maya whispered to herself, "Relax the wrists. Let the fingers breathe into the movement." The girl looked up, confused. She'd heard someone speak. Maya was still near the doorway, but before she could step away, Madeline appeared. "Excuse me," the instructor said, her tone ice wrapped in velvet. "Did you just try to coach my student?" I just thought." "You thought your janitorial expertise included musical instruction?" Maya's eyes dropped. The door clicked shut behind her, a firm finality that reminded her of the boundary she wasn't allowed to cross. But outside that door, her fingers traced the air, ghosting over invisible keys, completing the measures the student had struggled with, fluidly, flawlessly, silently. The day of the gala arrived in a whirlwind of silk gowns, cufflinks, and catered champagne. The conservatory sparkled, every surface scrubbed to gleam under the chandeliers. Maya, as always, moved behind the scenes, unseen. But the harmony shattered when Madeline stormed into the reception hall, phone pressed to her ear. "You've got to be kidding, food poisoning?" "Now." Evelyn rushed toward her. "What's wrong?" "Olivia can't perform. She's in the hospital. The Hungarian Rhapsody. No one else is ready for that." Panic filled Evelyn's face. But the foundation requested that piece specifically. Jason Hart, a young teaching assistant who always offered Maya a nod and a smile, approached hesitantly. "There might be another option," he said. Evelyn turned. "What is it?" Jason glanced toward Maya, who was dusting the portrait gallery. "I've heard someone else play it." "Perfectly." "Maya." The silence that followed was sharp and immediate. Madeline scoffed. "The janitor? You're joking. She plays late at night. I've heard her. She's remarkable." They all turned to Maya. She froze. "Maya," Evelyn asked, "is this true?" Maya's voice was quiet but unwavering. "Yes, ma'am." "You're saying you can play Liszt's Hungarian Rhapsody?" "Yes, ma'am. I know it by heart." "Who taught you?" "My grandmother." Evelyn glanced at Richard Laird, head of the foundation's board, who had approached during the commotion. "Well, Richard said, intrigued. This could be charming. A surprise act. If it works, it's memorable. If it doesn't, well, no one will blame us for trying. Madeline leaned in, whispering just loud enough for Maya to hear. If you fail, you'll humiliate yourself in front of every donor. Do you really want that? Maya raised her chin for the first time. What happens if I say no? She asked Evelyn. We'll need to revisit your role here, Evelyn said coldly. We have budget constraints. And there it was. The line. Step into the spotlight, or disappear entirely. Maya nodded once. I'll play. As the hall filled with patrons, chatter and clinking glasses bounced off the walls. Evelyn took the stage. Tonight, we present something different. In the spirit of community and inclusion, we offer a performance from one of our own. There was polite applause, more out of obligation than interest. And then Maya walked into the light, still in her beige uniform, still invisible, until she sat down. There was a pause. Then, her fingers touched the keys. The opening chords of Liszt's Rhapsody No. 2 rang out, not hesitant or tentative, but alive, confident, fluid, raw with soul. Heads turned. Conversations died. Every patron, every faculty member, every donor sat stunned as Maya played with a precision born not from elite training, but from soul-deep memory. Her grandmother's voice echoed in her mind. Music doesn't care about the title before your name. It listens to your truth. And Maya spoke the truth through every note. When she struck the final, thunderous chord, the room stayed silent for 3 beats, then exploded into a standing ovation. Cheers. Shouts of bravo. Hands clapping until they ached. David Wynn, a guest conductor in the audience, approached the stage. Where did you train? I didn't, Maya said, her voice clear. My grandmother, Clara Reynolds, taught me. She played with the Baltimore Symphony in the 70s. Recognition flashed across his face. Clara Reynolds, she was phenomenal. You're her granddaughter. Yes, sir. She raised me. Evelyn stepped forward, trying to recover the narrative. Well, this has been such a delightful. It's not a story, Maya cut in. It's my life. Her words were soft, but they cut sharper than any spotlight glare. Madeline, frozen at the side of the stage, had no words left. Later that evening, as patrons clustered around Maya with praise and questions, Richard Laird watched her from a distance. The janitor no longer. She had become someone they couldn't unsee. 3 weeks passed. Maya no longer wore a beige uniform. Now, she carried sheet music down the hallways she used to sweep. She had been named the director of a new program, Resonance, Music for All, designed to teach underprivileged youth the power of expression through piano. Sponsored by the Jefferson Foundation. Endorsed by David Wynn. Approved, somewhat begrudgingly, by Evelyn Hawthorne. She passed Evelyn in the hallway. A nod. Civil. No warmth, but respect. That was enough. In a small classroom on the 2nd floor, Maya sat with a group of 10 students from all over the city. Most had never seen a grand piano up close before. My grandmother used to say, Maya began, her fingers poised above the keys. Music is what happens when the world falls away. When everything else is silent, it still speaks. And then she played. Not to prove anything. Not for redemption. But because it was her voice. And finally, people were listening.